Wanted to thank Alan for spending some time with us today. He is going to share how he uses the assessments in his coaching and how that use of the assessments, just takes his coaching to the next level. So with that, I am going to turn it right over to you, Alan.
Gee, thanks. So who on this call has been through the Coaching Academy? Anybody? All right, got one. So, a lot of this I got from the Coaching Academy, but a lot of it was really before the Coaching Academy when we started doing advanced insight profiles. And it was funny that it was myself and Mr. Herdlinger who wound up using it the same exact way. We go through the process not having done the profile. So we go through the 9 weeks, and the 10th week, the transition of phase 2 is actually doing the profile. You might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. I want to know about my client before I start working with them. Fair enough. Here's my thought. So when using it as a transition of phase 2 coaching, that gives the coachee an opportunity to understand themselves without an outside look at themselves. Because after all, that's what an assessment is. An outside view of an individual. So I feel oftentimes if someone has that information before they begin coaching, they'll say things like, well, I am a high D, so that's the way I am. And we all know that's not really the way you are. It's the way you choose to be. So I find a lot of improper information gets passed back and forth between an individual and their own head when they have that information prior to be coached. So what's the advantage of doing it after? The advantage of doing it after is that they have their platform. They have their game plan going forward. They've got their professional goals. They've got their personal goals. And now they find out some information, especially in the attribute index, that gives them an opportunity to look at their strengths that they can apply toward their goals. Also with the values index, they can lean on their motivators. Very strong information at that time. I find that to be exceedingly valuable. Someone finds out they're economically motivated. Well, we all know ways that we can feed that economic motivation. But oftentimes the coachee had no clue they were economically motivated and really wouldn't have known how to motivate themselves. So at that, I'm going to be quiet. That's the basic premise of how I use it. What questions might you guys have? None. Good. Thanks, guys. Only kidding. What do you want to know? Does anybody use it differently?
Alan, I've always used it at the beginning. I think probably like the other 98%, excluding you and David.
Pretty much.
As a get to know the client. In fact, usually it's always been kind of a prelude to bringing them on as a coaching client.
Okay.
That's kind of the first taste they get of what coaching could be like. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of a new concept. I hadn't really thought of it coming in week 10.
I certainly don't discount that. Using that as a marketing tool, if you will. I just have chosen not to use it as a marketing tool. I like, my exploratory meetings with a potential coachee without using that. And I also don't like to be skewed by knowing them too well.
Fair enough.
I don't think there's a right or wrong here. To me, it's stylistic. I like to get to know someone by working with them so that they uncover things. And I think it makes me more objective where I'm not providing direction. You know, I am the anti-consultant. I really am. If someone asks me what they should do, I will not provide the answer. They're going to have to put a gun to my head for me to give them the answer. So, and I know a lot of us do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not my style. My style is to help someone find out for themselves, you know, if that makes sense. So I think it just leans into that more. I'm not saying, look, I probably don't think I haven't worked with people that my first work with them was a profile. Obviously, it's not my preference.
So this is just something you've gravitated more to over the years.
I haven't even gravitated to it. It's how I started. It was just, I guess David and I were in the first certification class for the Advanced Insight Profile. We were in it together. We were sitting next to each other, and there were probably 30 people doing it. I don't know if you remember, Wendy. It was a huge group. You know, it was the initial group. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to try. And a lot of us, you know, hopped on. And David and I just looked at each other, and the light bulb went on at the same time. Oh my God, I know when to use it. I said, I know when to use it. And then we spoke afterwards, and we had the same thought. I haven't spoken with him in a while. I have no idea if he's still using it that way, but I still use it that way many years on. So it was just an intuition that came to use it as the transition to phase 2 coaching. That's it. But I do hundreds of them anyway, you know, in helping companies hire people, in organizations wanting to know more about their employees, some of whom I get to coach, some of them I don't. So, you know, all about that.
Great.
What else, gang? Wow.
Hey, Alan. It's Adam.
Hey, Adam. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I imagine this would fall into a category of any of a number of things that could pre-frame expectations, and I think that's what you're cautioning about.
Yes.
So I would advise, like others, I use the profile out just to get the business, and then I would frequently I like the idea of having a contrast, particularly with the ones that do change a good bit over time, like DISC. So I have one at the beginning of the session and then one at the end, for example.
Right.
But I do caution people about this assessment or what their boss said they expect of the coaching or anything else as being something that will get in the way if it puts people in the frame of mind that this is what to expect.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's it right there. You know, too many people get wrapped up in themselves. You know, they look at that profile, they look at the 78 pages of an Advanced Insight profile, and they, you know, incorporate all that in some of the right ways and some of the improper ways. So, you know, when you take that as this is me, this document is me, I think it locks people into a certain dynamic that may or may not be fruitful. So I like to be open.
So, Alan, may I ask a question of you?
Yeah.
When you use this in your coaching, he knows I was going to ask the question anyway. When you use this in your coaching, what do you debrief with them? Like, are there specific pages that you focus on as you transition them into that ongoing? Can you share a little bit about what that process looks like?
Yeah, well, you know, in essence, for the most part, it's my standard debrief. I go over most of the pages of the DISC, you know, while stating that a lot of that is, you know, conscious to them. You know, we've all debriefed a lot of these, you know, but what do you get when you say, let's look at these bullet points for your, you know, your D? And what do people say? Yep, 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 yep. The whole thing is a bunch of yeps. They might have one or two bullet points say, well, I don't agree with that one. Oh, great. You know, and going back to the beginning here, before I answer the question, Wendy, this might be helpful. What was I going to say? I lost my train of thought, so I'll continue with yours. We'll get back to it at some point. The values index, I do like I was taught, you know, which is do the top two and do the bottom one. That's what I do. Here's my point. If there are any questions doing it, it's the only time I believe that us as profilers, because that's what we are when we're debriefing these, as profilers, it's almost incumbent upon us to give direction and recommendations. And that's another reason why I don't do it up front. Because I think when we look at a profile, there are some tendencies and some things we can glean from that can help us. You can look at someone and say, you really need to take care of this, or this is an area that really needs some focus, or these are things. Once you do that, you're providing direction. Again, my coaching practice is one in which I don't, but I do that. So the values index I do as we were instructed, and the advanced insight profile, I do the 6 clarity scores first, and then I work through the external composite, the internal composite, and pretty much just the last page at that point in time. And the last page to me is the money. Because no matter how poor someone's scores are, guess what? Some things are higher than others, even the people with low scores. So great. How cool is that to point that out to someone, that these are the things that are most clear to you, the things that you have talents in, things that you should use in fulfilling your goals. What? Hold on, someone's here.
I'm sorry, that's my grandfather's clock.
That's all right. I guess it's time.
You're 30.
No, 3:15.
So, what does that answer your question, Wendy?
Yeah, I was just curious if that was helpful for the groups to understand. Do you debrief the whole thing or pieces of it?
Oh, no, I don't think I've ever debriefed the whole thing. I mean, it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour, and I go fast. Yeah. I go fast. And yes, there are some situations, like I did one the other day, where I'm working with an employee inside the company where I was hired to coach this individual, and this is that we went a lot deeper than normal because I thought it was appropriate at the time. That's all. But and this is what I'm doing. I did that before. I'm actually going to start working with him next week. So this was one where this is how we determined we were going to work. So I did get directive with him. And for him, the directive was he really needs to be coached.
There you go.
Wow, go figure. Amazing that.
Alan and Wendy, just to add to that, I'm a little late to the party, to which I apologize.
Okay.
So I didn't hear what happened before I got here. But when I debrief the profiles, one of the pages that I pay attention to, because it's always very impactful, is the communications page.
Likewise.
That's really important, how you like to communicate and how you like to be communicated with. Mm-hmm. Because I've never met a person or an organization that didn't have problems with communication within the organization.
I agree. That's one of the pages I go over. There are just some pages I don't go over.
Well, it's 71 pages if you do an advanced insights. That's more information than anybody needs.
Unless the theoreticals want to look at every line, and so you have to steer them away from that. But it's all good. But yeah, that is a great page. And look, I'm sure you guys have the same thing that I have. A lot of my clients have copied that darn page and put it in their cubicle, reviewed it with the people they work with every day, and that means the people they work with want to have one. So we do a lot of groups within organizations. Even if I started with one individual, everyone wants that. But again, that's changeable. I mean, I'm going to say what's on my mind, guys. You guys all know me well enough. I don't like DISC. I just don't like it. I think it gives information that just clouds people's minds. Has anyone taken DISC like 30 years ago, as I did? And the difference is astounding. You can make that thing sing. Anybody can. So I hold a lot more sway on the second and third profiles in there. I don't know how many times I hear people I haven't worked with say, wow, that person's a high I, or that person's a high C. Or, really? Hardwired. It's like someone saying that they're not a morning person. I didn't know they identified that gene. You know, I'm not a morning person, really. Okay.
Alan, that's a good point. And I've doing group debriefs. I've encouraged everybody not to walk around labeling each person, or try using it to figure out what somebody else is. Because as I told them, we all carry all four of those within us. You don't know when you're catching that person. If you're catching it at a time when their high I is coming out, or more of their I is coming out, or more of their C, or more of their D, you know, because we morph in and out of these all the time. And I just encourage them to use it as a way of understanding yourself, so that you can kind of catch your own behavior in that millisecond before something comes out of your mouth that might not be right.
Yeah, brilliantly said. You know, it almost is like transactional analysis in parent-adult child. It's the same thing. These are just theories. You know, I think the difference, you know, obviously with you know, with the Hartman piece, is that it supposedly is so scientifically proven that, you know, there's so much validity to it scientifically, you know. And again, as a doubter, I kind of doubt that, but it's okay. But you know, I think even saying that and using that, people love to know that. But that changes too. The internals. Has anyone done one with a client a second time? Anybody?
I did myself.
Cool.
And
What'd you find out?
Coaching academy, and found a lot of the areas that I had hoped to develop. Now, this may, of course, be, you know, confirmation bias, but I did see the scores improved in areas of empathy, you know, emotional intelligence, and the like, which I sorely needed. And that's going to happen when you go through something like Coaching Academy.
Absolutely. One individual, a second in command of a nice $5 million company, and the owner said to me, "Why don't we do a second one on this guy?" I said, "You sure you want to do that? Let's do it." And that's exactly what happened. We had laid a plan out for this guy, you know, because he wasn't empathetic, you know, very similar to Adam, and whatever. And he made major strides in the areas that they were focusing on. So at the time, this was probably a year ago, I said I would be doing more seconds, you know, going back. But I'm doing too many firsts to do a whole lot of seconds. So it's all good.
Alan?
Yep.
One of the things I had talked to Jay about was actually using the attribute index as a means of measuring a change in behavior. Because I'm in communication with a group out of Bangalore, India. Their challenge is that individuals graduate as engineers and fail in the marketplace because they have absolutely no soft skills. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to create a process where over 4 years worth of training and coaching, we can help them better interact in the workplace. But I suggested perhaps we could have them take this assessment maybe once every 2 years to see if what we're doing is in fact affecting change in their behavior, which would then get us more support from the people who are heading up the university. Yeah,
remember, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference in the externals on the index, but I'm telling you, internals, you know, it's a snap. Internals are a snapshot. You know, where is that person now? So obviously it impacts, you know, the scores on a lot of the attributes, not just the internal attributes. Right. So it's a blended score. So to me, it was fascinating to do. And I was wondering why, you know, a lot of us don't do it, including myself, you know. And again, our clients, you know, take that as that's the way they are. You know, pardon me, I was going to sneeze. So that's a good point. That might be a whole other thing, Wendy, to discuss at a power summit.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I jotted it down.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. Do you have anybody that you know of out there that's doing that, a before and after? And yeah, I think you need a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have a gal now who runs a company with her husband, and my, did that report say that, you know, she needs to find herself. You know, she's buried within the company, and as a mother and as a wife, you know, and she doesn't have herself, you know, So that's, coaching would be amazing for someone in that situation. And she knows it. So it'd be great to coach her, work with her, follow up with her for a while, and then have her do it again. I guarantee that thing would sing second time around.
Hey,
I
Alan,
think,
this is Glenn.
Yeah.
Is coaching in your world synonymous with delivering a process, leadership, whatever it is, or can it be something else?
Well, you asked me two questions there. So for me, coaching is a process. Okay. Can it be something else? Of course it can. Just not the way I like to deliver to my clients. To me, without the process, someone doesn't have a foundation.
Okay.
I always liken it to building a house. To me, the process is the excavation, the foundation, the framing of the house, putting exterior on the roof, getting it sheetrocked, but, there's no design inside, So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But I was wondering if somebody comes to you with a specific need, they want to be coached on that need as opposed to, I want leadership development or I want whatever. That's what I'm asking.
I agree. So I'll tell you how I handle that. First of all, we dive a lot deeper than that would be. To me, that would be like us walking into the doctor and say, "Hey, my knee's broken. I need knee replacement." So you're the doctor. I'm the doctor. So I go through the diagnostic process.
Gotcha.
And the diagnostic process will always reveal it's a whole lot more than that one thing. And that one thing might be a symptom, not a cause. I can go on and on and on. And sometimes I get pushed to the wall. And I turned down a client last week in a really large organization because the president wanted me to work with this one thing with this person. But, to me, it's in a vacuum. I know you can make progress on one individual item, but taking into the context of the whole person, I believe that our process is brilliant.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. What else, guys? What other thoughts? Anything with assessments? A lot of you guys use assessments to make sales?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that your number one way of making a sale? So do you offer it for nothing or do you charge for it and then try and make a bigger sale?
That depends. If somebody is going to be our client, they don't get to be our client unless they take the assessments.
So you do it up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was mine. I don't know if you heard that, Linda. I don't use them like that.
Oh, okay.
No, I use them as the transition between phase 1 and phase 2 coaching.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I use it as part of the coaching process, not as something to gain a coaching client.
Okay.
And I'd rather not know about the individual.
Really?
Yeah. And I'd rather the individual not know because our process is a process of self-discovery. And I want them to be fully engaged in that instead of having directives within that, which to me, the assessment would give them.
Okay.
Well, I really can or can't do that. I'm a high S&C, so it's going to take me a while to get through this. To fill out a goal planning sheet might take me 3 hours where it might only take someone else 15 minutes. I've heard stuff like this.
I know.
I don't want to hear things like that. And I think, again, someone has to find out for themselves without an outside view. So that's what you missed was that.
Okay. And I think that one of the reasons that we've used the assessments up front and sometimes as a sales tool is that the debrief gives us a level of credibility that we might not otherwise have.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Because you debrief that and people go, wow.
Yeah, they think you're the cat's meow. I understand that.
I can also see the advantage of doing it the way you use it also.
Yeah. So that's what I like to do. And I like to, prove my validity by being the doctor.
Yeah.
Really saying that, doctor of development, really, and, through my questioning in a meeting.
Yeah, and I'd like to get back to something that Dan said, where he doesn't want to label people, and you don't want to label people, and it shifts and changes. I think that's probably true. It when he said that, it gave me pause to say, well, on any given day, I can either be natural or adaptive, depending on the circumstances, the situation, what I need to be doing, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting, I think, to know what your natural state is, and that there is that diversity between natural and adaptive. But to Dan's point, he's absolutely right. If I'm in a circumstance where I need to be operating in a certain way, I could be a high S and C, where naturally I'm a high I, as everybody knows. A high I and a fairly high D. But there are circumstances where I need to be the detail-oriented person and really kind of dive into that end of it, which is not necessarily my natural state. But it is for that particular circumstance. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. I mean, when I originally took it, I was well before my RAC or TAN or career, my coaching career. When I was a corporate warrior, and my company had us do it.
Oh.
And I was a 99D, 99I.
Oy.
And that's the way. Look, I grew up in New York and New Jersey, and my father was a New Yorker, my grandfather was a New Yorker, and they were tough. And that's the way I managed. And I realized that was a horrible way to manage. Horrible. I was in parent, adult, child, it was all parent, all the time. Didn't realize it. But by taking that disc many years ago, it was an eye-opener to me. So now, my D's like a 15. I'm the same person. I just behave differently. DISC measures how you choose to behave. No, S and C are never going to be more than a 10 with me, so that's a whole. Rules, details, forget about it. And if it's not moving at the speed of light,
no,
it's not fast enough. So we got to keep going. So, that's, but people get locked in, Linda. I know you've seen it too with your clients. People get locked into that, and so they won't come off the dime, even though coming off the dime might be more valuable to them and what they want to achieve.
Yeah, people can do something and they go, well, of course I did that. I'm a high D or I'm a high S.
Yeah.
Like, well, so what?
I've written essays. You can't, a low S and C, how can they write and do a good job writing? You do it. You have to do it. You want to do it, whatever the case may be.
Again, on any given day,
Again, the disc to me is fluff. And
okay.
I treat it like that internally, but not to my clients. I don't say what we just did was complete garbage. So don't pay attention to it. I do not say that.
Not a good idea.
Not a good idea. But I do tell them that I believe the other two are more subconscious and much more hardwired than the disc. That's what I do say.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
Alan, the answer to your question is how do S's and C's write? The answer is voluminously.
There we go. Thank you, my friend. I know.
Hey, thank you. I've got to hop for a 2:30, so I appreciate you doing this for us today.
Oh, Dan, great seeing you.
Great seeing you. Bye.
Take care, Dan.
So, it's just a funny thing. But, I can tell you, I know it's a sample size of one, but for, my client that did the one and then 2.5 years later did it again. I mean, his values index was almost identical.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously his D went down. It's so much like, transactional analysis, parent, adult, child. It really is. His D went down. I'm sure if I did the transactional analysis thing again, his parental would have gone way down. And
Yeah,
his
one would
adult
think.
went
Yeah.
up because that's what he was working on.
Yeah,
You know, things like that.
it is. It is.
You know.
But, I will tell you that I think I did the attribute index I took it twice, a couple of years apart.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look at it but my recollection is that my empathy went up. And, the explanation is, well, that's the work I do, now that I've been doing for X amount of years. So I would hope that my empathy went up.
Yeah.
Not that it was terrible, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when we all took it way back in the dark ages, that was when I
Right.
was going through my divorce.
Ugh.
So you can imagine what my internals looked like. So I know when people are having a rough time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen it. You run into someone in that situation. It could be many different
Sure.
things. But things just aren't, on the up and up with their world at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter. But the externals, I don't think they're going to move that much. But, it's cool that you can make it move. Again, I just think it's a harder assessment to gain, as we all know, as we've been trained. It really is. Even for those of us that know it. I mean, we all can look up what the perfect score is.
There is such a thing?
Yes, there is.
Oh, all right.
You can look it up.
Okay.
You can find out. And
All
then
right.
you can do it and go, oh, look at this, all 10s.
Yeah.
But, that's not the best use of our time, I don't think. But
No.
who knows? Who knows? So it's interesting. I know, the way I use it is different than most.
Okay.
But it's cool.
I actually have a question for Wendy. Do we have any additional assessments on the horizon that might be available to us somewhere in the future?
Currently, we just have the DISC attribute index values, DISC plus, which combines the DISC and the values, and your advanced insights, which combines all three.
Okay.
With the emotional intelligence chapter coming up, we'll be looking at something there very early on. Don't know what that looks like yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be valuable. That'd be valuable.
Yeah.
Well, Linda, do you use the transactional analysis piece in your work?
I've used it more with groups as a way to identify. I usually will have, in a group, I'll usually have them do the transactional analysis, and then the discussion will be around role playing and how you interact with others, not so much from an individual, not so much the way I use the other assessments.
I've used it with every single person I've ever worked with.
Individuals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To what end?
To what end? To what end? Remember, people are going through ostensibly leadership development and being a leader and working with other people and communicating. To me, if you've ever read I'm Okay, You're Okay, and, the foundational piece of that, parent, adult, and child to me is huge. I mean, people that are high parental, trying to bash people into doing what they want them to do and realizing they don't get a whole lot of luck with that. Once they realize that, they could behave differently. They can transact more in the adult.
Yeah.
And it's stunning how that helps. I've got so many stories of people that I'm working with a guy who runs an electrical contracting company. He was going, no wonder my guys are always running away from me. I'm putting them into the child all the time. And literally within 2 weeks, he goes, unbelievable.
Wow.
The difference in, because he's using a different tone. He's using a different way of speaking. He's asking questions instead of demanding. So that knowledge for people, I can tell you, for me, as a father, it made a huge difference.
Oh, sure.
Instead of saying, like, to my big son, Go figure, my big son's a Marine. All right? With things like this coming out of my mouth. Get your ass up to your room and clean it now. As opposed to, how would I say it to Rebecca? So Rebecca, when do you think you'll be able to clean your room? What do you think got better result? Pretty easy.
I know.
It depends.
So, I mean, there's something to be said for that. I know it sounds simple, but it really isn't. And when people realize that, or when someone's an off-the-chart child, and that's the avoidance game. They're running away from everything. That's what you want to do. Knock yourself out. So I think it's hugely valuable. It doesn't take a lot of time. The price is right.
Right.
What instrument do you use, Alan?
There is the assessment for transactional analysis. It's in our material.
Oh, it is.
It's in the support manual, isn't it?
It's in the support material.
It's actually in every implementation where we talk about communications. It's a suggested exercise right in the facilitation manuals.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, people. I just started doing it because it was there, but people absolutely loved it. It was the first assessment I ever used. It was before we had the assessments. I was using it all the time, and it was great. And yeah, sometimes I'd work with someone, they'd say, well, would you come in and do this with my team? Sure. So to me, it's quick and easy, And I know the theory's 40 years old now, but like any of this stuff, it's all theory. Yeah. If we knew how the mind really worked, we'd create an assessment and find out about everybody, but we're all so weird. I'm speaking for myself, by the way.
Yeah, good.
Thanks.
Hey, Alan, and maybe everybody else on the line, I got a question that, when we debrief, we go DISC, values, and attributes. And so a lot of times there's apparent correlation or lack of correlation between the three. And so do you have any guidance, reference material, notes, experiences on, how, attributes correlate with values, correlate with DISC?
No, other than, I don't know, I've probably done a couple thousand by now. So, you get a feel. That's all. I don't have anything academically that I've ever done. Again, I'll say it like my clients say it. My theoretical is like a 5. I don't care about that stuff. I just care about how I speak about it with someone. But I think that the more you do it, the more expert you are at it. And I think, Linda, you said it. You get so much bang for the buck. People really get a great feel for your expertise when you debrief the thing. It's magical. Especially the attribute index.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's not bullet point based.
Right.
The other ones, shoot. You get a bullet point. Anyone can read that.
Right.
Here it is, and debrief it. It doesn't take.
We always say that DISC and values are fairly straightforward. I mean, it is what it is. Here it is. You could probably just put the paper in front of them, and they could debrief it themselves.
Yes.
But attribute index takes a lot more depth.
Absolutely, and expertise. But
I have a question for Mike. Were you asking about a correlation between DISC and transactional analysis?
No, DISC and attributes.
DISC and attributes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah. No, it's a great question.
Look, maybe. So you look at somebody that's got low empathy and very high I and D. Okay, so what does that tell me, right? And what I've been noticing is that those people are absolute overbearing, don't care about anybody else, and will talk over people, will never listen, right? But then when the empathy comes up, usually the I adaptive comes down. That's what I'm seeing. Now, I haven't done very many. I've done about 40, right? And I got another 10 in work. But, so I'm struggling to learn this stuff, right? But that I'm seeing a little bit of correlation like that here and there.
That's interesting that you're finding that. I'll have to say, I've never even looked for a correlation. but I
I
understand.
had to because clients started asking me, well, hey, if this is low, why, how comes this one's high?
Yeah, and
If my empathy's low, if my empathy's high, how can my altruism be so low?
And how do you answer that?
I say empathy comes in multiple forms, and empathy means you understand people, but not necessarily care about them. That's what I tell them.
I think that's a great way of saying it. I'd probably answer it similarly. But I think, you can care about people without being an altruist,
Well, and you can understand people, which is really what empathy is, I think.
That's exactly what it is. You again, layman's terms, you can put yourself in someone else's shoes. You feel what they feel. That doesn't necessarily mean you want to solely work on their behalf. You have another motivation. Remember, it's two different things. So, the correlation would be interesting, Mike, but I think, it's measuring two different things. And I think that's the easiest way that I've explained it and continue to explain it. So they're related, but they're really not related. It's like saying, someone that's a high D is going to have low empathy. Not necessarily.
Right.
You might look at that, but I haven't found that. I found a lot of high Ds with high empathy, which doesn't make sense to me, but that's a cool clock, Linda.
I'm sorry. I should close the door.
It's a good thing my door, my ring, I have one of the
Your
rings,
doorbell?
The doorbell's front and back of the house, and ding, a bird flies by and it makes it go off. What else, guys? Nothing? Come on now.
It's summer. It's 99 degrees. What can I tell you?
It's true.
It is.
I don't know. I have fun with assessments. Every time I think that I don't want to do anymore, another 10 pop up that I need to do.
It's fascinating, and sometimes when I meet people and start a conversation, there's the part of my brain that is trying to assess them without the assessments, and I've been proven wrong more times than I care to think about.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So, you're an expert in debriefing it, and still, as a profiler, you don't know someone until they do that. Yeah, I've got long story how I got involved with a big company in Wilmington, large engineering company here. I was referred into them. This is, they have been doing DISC for years as their assessment of choice. And when I did with one of the vice presidents, the attribute index, she was just blown away. So they're waiting for their DISC contract to end. I think they're going to do advanced insights profiles instead. Which I've
Are you going to have them do DISC again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, which is interesting, Wendy, we have the DISC with the values, but we don't have the values alone with the attribute index. And I would use that.
Okay.
I prefer not to use the DISC if I had my druthers.
I can mention that on our next call with Intermetrics.
I mean, if they put that together or something,
No, I can. I wrote it down so I can bring that up.
How you're motivated. I'd eliminate the DISC for many of the things I would use. Okay. But I think that when an organization sees that, the first time I used it, this vice president, who literally is second in charge of this firm, said, "I've got a problem employee." They had promoted him above and beyond where he needed to be promoted. We see it all the time, don't we? Mm-hmm. He was a magnificent engineer. They promote him to manager, and he's so we did the profile, and man, did it show that he was like twisted in a knot. He was totally out of his element, not playing to his strengths, and she saw it. And we got together for a half-hour phone call and decided that she should probably demote him, and that's what she did. And he is happy as a clam. The first call was that she says, "Can I hire you to coach him?" Now, maybe 20 years ago, I would have said, sure. But, working through it, I talked myself out of the gig. But, it was the right thing to do. And it was, well-timed and well-placed. So, we made an individual happy and, and productive at work. And I think that's part of what we do. Using that tool. So that's one of the times I used it in front, but still not my preference. Not my preference. What else, gang?
I'm good.
Wendy, anything else?
All right, nope, if there's no other questions, Alan, thank you for taking your time today to share those words of wisdom. And
Wendy, can you, question for you, can you stay on the line for a minute after everybody else leaves? I just had something I wanted to throw at you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Take care.
Thanks for sharing, Al.
Yeah, my pleasure. Take
Thanks
care.
a lot, man.